Hi everyone, welcome to our From Campus to Corporate Navigating the Corporate World webinar with 10KIF alumni Luciana. This is a safe space to get your questions and queries answered, so please be sure to submit them in the chat/Q&A box. We'll wait a few moments for everyone to arrive and then we'll get started shortly. Okay, cool. Should we get started and we'll wait for everyone to start arriving?
Cool. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey everyone. First of all, I just want to say a huge congratulations. You've made it through what's often the hardest part, which is like the application stage, from the interviews, assessments, forms. It's really good that like you've done all the work and you've ended up on the 10K program. So I don't just want this to be about kind of like me giving you a list and array of things to do during your internship, but more about just kind of like learning from my experience and just kind of like telling you the kind of inner workings that no one tells you about life in corporate or interning in corporate. Because really internships aren't just learning about how to do the work, but also navigating people, feedback, self-confidence, opportunities, and just your own expectations of yourself significantly. So really, I just want you to learn. I just want you to leave this session feeling excited, but also grounded. And I want you to be able to know that you belong in the rooms that you're about to enter. And even if sometimes your brain's trying to convince you otherwise. So really, today's going to be split into 4 parts, starting with mindset, going on to practical work habits, people and relationships, and confidence and personal growth. Could we then move to the next slide, please? So introducing myself, I'm Luciana. I'm currently studying law at the University of Birmingham. People would describe me as very sharp and vibrant. Some of you may know me from certain competitions and awards, whilst others may be familiar with my work in social mobility, as I sit on 2 of the UK's biggest social mobility charities. My own journey into corporate life is very much still ongoing. I'm not someone, speaking 15 years ahead, but really I'm just speaking just one chapter ahead. And I feel like sometimes that's a lot more valuable because everything's still very fresh in my mind, especially because I'm still going through and experiencing that process with you all. So I've just kind of like put on the slides like some objectives that people would describe me as. Jeff Bezos once said, personal branding is about what people say about you when you're not in the room. So yeah, just kind of like thinking about how you influence others also, and just knowing your audience and tailoring your personal brand. But yeah, so last summer I secured an internship with HSBC, and that was in the legal division. So that internship exposed me to legal work at a global level, supporting live client transactions, contributing to cross-border legal research, and just contracting actually the very banking products many of us still use today. So I saw how legal and financial services intersect, and I learned really what it means to work inside one of the largest financial institutions in the world. But I just want to pause and actually be transparent here because all of that on paper sounds really neat and polished, but in reality, behind those highlights, there was someone who was still learning something every day, sometimes absolutely terrified inside and constantly thinking to themselves, am I asking too many questions? Is this good enough? Do I sound professional enough? Is it okay that I have to like Google half of these acronyms, etc., etc.? Because you see, no one really teaches you how to navigate corporate life, and there isn't like a professional life 101 class at university. There's no clear syllabus that says, here's how to handle receiving tough feedback, or here's how to build, real meaningful relationships at work rather than just awkward small talk. There's just so much, networking is such a buzzword, but like, how do you actually do that effectively? And that's why we're here today. So again, I just want you to feel equipped with confidence, and yeah, looking forward to getting really into it. Next slide, please. So deeper into my internship experience, this is just part where I'm gonna like share some, real behind the scene moments as to what's shaped my understanding of what corporate life really feels like. I remember standing outside of the HSBC office building on my first day, early, of course, because when you're nervous, you arrive like 40 minutes early and thinking, okay, whoa, this is actually happening. Like I remember being in Canary Wharf and just being around all of these people in suits and heels and all sorts, and just kind of feeling a little bit out of place, especially just after like coming back from starting the break from uni. So when I first stepped into the building, I was met by an incredible team that really welcomed me, but even with that kindness, there was still this quiet conflicting inner dialogue happening in my head. And honestly, all doubts are valid because stepping into a global company or any sort of firm can feel like stepping into a completely different world, different country. There's a language to learn, a culture to absorb, unwritten rules that no one really teaches you. And all of that learning begins the moment you literally arrive at the doorstep. In terms of my actual role, as aforementioned, I was assigned the legal division, so that looked like supporting legal research and cross-border issues, which sometimes meant looking up legislation from jurisdictions I hadn't even studied before. Also, I took part in the volunteering side of things, which I'll talk about when I talk about affinity groups later on in the presentation. That was really rewarding because I learned different kind of like abstract parts of law, but also just really understanding the real kind of like what real world human impact I was having, and just a lot of drafting internal notes and research summaries that helped inform internal decisions within my team. And that in itself really taught me how to quickly be clear, concise, and commercially relevant in how I communicated. But beyond the work, something happens during these internships, and it's really just pausing and where I want to kind of like offer this moment of, you're not just learning technical skills, but you're really learning a lot about how the work you do actually works. So what do I mean by that? Okay, you're learning how teams function, how communications flow between departments, how decisions get made, how senior leaders think strategically while more junior colleagues focus tactically, how internal politics exists. Those of course aren't always spoken about directly, but you will definitely experience that during your internship, and just really most importantly, how to thoroughly read a room, how to analyze a room, not just about what's being said, but how it's being said. And again, all of that is what we're going to like really delve into today. I remember actually 2 weeks into my internship, I was given a task to research the legal implications of certain regulatory change that affected international banking operations. And in theory, why I had studied that regulation in law school, in practice, it was a completely different territory. And like honestly, my first instinct was to panic slightly. What if I give the wrong answer? What if I miss something important? What if I sound stupid when presenting my findings? But really, what kicked in was I remembered, okay, one, they don't expect perfection from interns, and two, what they value is process, structure, and effort. So instead of freezing, it was really important that I broke down problems into smaller parts, researched each part carefully, drafted a clear structured summary with sources, and flagged areas I wasn't sure on, where I thought needed additional review. And just even and by being proactive in those steps, like your supervisor will be impressed. And really, I want to hone in on the importance of soft skills because actually, um, I didn't realize how important they were. So that's kind of like looking at how to run efficient meetings, how to write professional email, that's clear, respectful, and gets responses. When I tell you the amount of emails you'll be sending, like one thing I actually really took away was when you're writing an email, every new point always create like a line break. So it's just clear and concise. So that's just a top tip to take down. But yeah, how to take effective notes in real time and how to stay calm and senior leaders during meetings unexpectedly. Because all of that is you learn from observation. So yeah, I just want you all to know that you'll feel like you don't know what you're doing at times. You'll feel nervous. You'll feel like everyone kind of has it together more than you, and that's completely normal. But really, the truth is, even full-time professionals feel that way sometimes. And you just remember that the people who succeed aren't the ones who avoid those feelings, but actually are the ones who embrace and learn to manage those feelings while still showing up fully as themselves. So just a personal note to you, as interns starting soon, if I could bottle one piece of advice from this section and hand it to you before your first day, it would be this. You're not expected to arrive perfect, but you're expected to arrive willing. willing to learn, willing to try, willing to ask, and willing to grow. Because if you bring that sort of willingness into your internship, you're already far ahead of where you might think. Next slide, please. So now we're going to move on to one of the most important and honestly one of the most challenging shifts you'll face, which is that shift in mindset. So I've divided this into academic versus corporate. Because as much as your technical knowledge matters, it's your ability to adjust how you think that will make the biggest difference between a good internship and an outstanding one. So the structure you're leaving from university, let's start with the academic world. At university, you're given very clear assignment briefs. Deadlines are fixed and usually far in advance, as we know. The marking criteria is fully explained to you, and there's usually a model answer somewhere in your head as to how to approach a set problem. Even if you procrastinate at times, which you all do, you always know exactly kind of what success is going to look like, right? However, the shift in this is the structure you're entering in the corporate sense is deadlines change constantly, literally, sometimes even daily. You'll receive assignments that aren't fully defined, a lot of ambiguity. Sometimes you'll be asked to look into something, but no one will tell you exactly how. And there isn't always a right answer. Really, it's more about the better approach. So this is where a lot of interns, myself included, felt the initial panic because suddenly you realize, whoa, there's no marking scheme anymore. And what matters now is how do you break down ambiguous problems? How do you communicate what you found? How do you prioritize when four people are coming at you with different tasks at the same time? And how do you manage up? Meaning, how do you update your manager in that process before they have to face you? So an example, I remember like I had to review a legal document to kind of flag some compliance. And as a law student, I was thinking, okay, that's easy, spot the legal issues. But in reality, I didn't really understand the company's internal policies yet, and the document involved areas of law I hadn't actually studied. And the language in itself was just full of financial and business terms I wasn't familiar with at all. And I remember freezing for that second in my voice. I was thinking, I'm definitely missing something. Like, what if I look incompetent? But again, going back to remaining grounded, you have to say to yourself, I'm here to think, not to know. So it's about breaking that into smaller sections, building a list of questions, research. I remember researching into internal guidelines and always making sure you're taking note of what you're not sure of, because that shows that you are acknowledging what you're not sure of. And the truth and mindset for that is corporate life isn't just about having all the answers, but it's about actually how you approach uncertainty. So definitely, a real world tip there is, managers aren't just hiring thinking partners, people that are like them. They're not just trying to hire walking textbooks, right? They want someone who's able to say, here's what I found, here's my reasoning, and here's where I need your input. That in itself shows maturity, self-awareness, and professionalism. So a quick reflection moment for all of you. I want you to take 5 seconds right now just to quietly ask yourself, okay, how comfortable am I today with ambiguity? What do I normally do when I don't know where to start? Am I willing to slow down, structure my thinking, break things into steps? Because if you master that mindset in its entirety, you're already training the skill that senior professionals still work on during their entire careers. Actually, something just come to mind. The other day, I participated in this workshop, and one thing I found really useful was like learning my personality type, because that actually helped me understand kind of how I approach situations or approach ambiguity, approach certain people. So if you're all interested in just like knowing your personality type and just knowing more about yourself, I recommend taking the 16 personalities quiz online. Trust me, it's really, really useful. I'll try and like insert the link for that later. Could we have the next slide, please? So, there's this internship myth that my manager will tell me exactly what to do. Let me gently break that myth for you today, because that is not the case when you enter your internship, right? Put it right, frankly, managers are busy. They're always balancing they're balancing their own work and their team's work, but also their clients' needs and obviously the reputational side of things in terms of the wider business. If you sit passively waiting to be assigned every next step, two things are going to happen. one, you're going to get very little exposure, and two, you'll just be forgettable. Whereas if you take ownership, you become someone they trust to handle your work. So I'm going to share a system that really worked for me. So my kind of like set structure was every morning I had a 15-minute task review. So I'd list open tasks and due dates. I actually had like a color coding system. Check calendar for meetings. Always sync up your calendars. So that was the morning. In the afternoon, I do a quick end of day review, what's complete, what needs to follow up. And I also used Outlook calendar blocks for, focus work time, prep time before meetings, review time before deadlines. One, I really love Notion. So try and find a sort of like application that works for you. Everybody's going to have a different type. I use Notion, I use my calendar, I use all sorts, but definitely find something that works for you. And yeah, so weekly I'd send short emails, constantly sending updates. You wanna make sure you're acknowledging what you're doing and you're being visible whilst acknowledging what you're doing. So constantly sending short email updates to my manager proactively, and just kind of saying, okay, here's what I've completed, here's what I'm still working on, no blockers at present, etc., etc. Because by doing that, by doing that, my manager didn't have to chase me. They could actually trust me with more responsibility, and I felt calmer knowing I had visibility over my own workload. So it kind of goes, how I see it is kind of like a trust equation. So think of it as visibility and proactivity equals trust, right? When you have trust, that equals more opportunity. And the big truth in that is, your manager's job isn't essentially to just hold your hand, but really your manager's job is to trust that you've got it. And the more of your own work that you do, the more you get handed your work. You see what I mean with that equation? So visibility and proactivity equals trust. When you have trust, you then have more opportunity. And then moving on to the next slide, please. So this fits in really well with feedback, the coding feedback. So feedback, right? Feedback is your growth accelerator, essentially. Because let's get real, feedback can sting, right? Especially when you actually care about the work you're doing. I still remember one particular feedback session where my supervisor told me, "Oh, Luciána, your legal research is really strong, but you need to focus more on what actually matters commercially. What's your client going to do with this information?" And in that moment, I did feel a bit like disappointed, but also really deeply grateful because it was information that I could use to improve and be better. So there's this kind of emotional loop to it, right? Feedback, emotion, reaction, learning, improvement. And really our job is to shorten that loop. So how I received feedback is there's kind of I'd break it down in that: one, pause before reacting; two, ask clarifying, well, I can't speak. Ask clarifying questions if you're unsure. Write down specifics. Um, Again, turn it into some sort of management system. So it could be a checklist for improvement, and apply it immediately onto your next task. There's no point in listening to feedback and to not be proactive um, and develop that in your next piece of work, right? You want to show that you're taking in what's being said to you and that you're able to take that further, because what managers really love to see is you've heard their feedback, you've taken that action, and they're not just constantly repeating themselves to you. So really it's about being growth focused, open-minded, don't be defensive, take everything as constructive. And a lot of this is mental build up in that you have to try, and I'm sure all of us like have that kind of intuition to be resilient, right? So just view feedback as a tool for growth, and just always stay open to what can be improved. Which leads us to our next slide, which goes hand in hand with what I like to call the 20-minute rule. This is going to come in handy for a lot of you. So the 20-minute rule, this is kind of like your problem-solving rule book, right? So I've divided it up into four. You can see that I like dividing things up into kind of like little sections. But one, you want to define your problem clearly. Two, you want to spend 20 focused minutes trying, right? So when you're given something and you're given this task to do independently, you don't want to just constantly you don't want to, whilst collaboration is really important, you don't want to constantly be asking your team or your manager for guidance. You want to try and do things proactively on your own independently. Remember what I was saying with the trust equation. You want to be trusted with more work. So you have to be proactive. So yeah, one, identify the problem. Two, identify the problem, clarifying exactly what the issue is. Two, spend 20 minutes, spend 20 focus minutes trying to just use available resources, notes, previous examples and systems. So at my internship HSBC, we actually had like a whole HSBC university. Really get to know your firm in those preliminary weeks where you're going kind of like through training with that specific firm, see if they have a sort of database for like upskilling yourself, or just database in terms of like getting to know their systems, right? Three, attempt 1 to 2 solutions, test your ideas and check if your approach works. But of course, if you've gone through those kind of 3 steps and you're still struggling, then 4, escalate with context if you're still stuck. So share what you've tried with the person above you, and see where you need further guidance. So again, this is really loved because managers will see that you respect our time, you're showing initiative, and you're growing your independence. So just be confident in wanting to learn, be willing to learn. It's like what I was saying at the start of being willing to learn. And moving on to the next slide. So cultural fluency and authenticity. So let's talk raw identity in corporate spaces. So as a first generation professional myself, as a person of color, as a woman at that, corporate spaces can feel really foreign at times. You may be the only one who looks like you in a room, and that in itself can trigger imposter syndrome. But here's my truth. Every room I walk into is better because I'm in it. You have to have that mindset because you are there for a reason. You're worthy, right? So I want you to all I want you to all think to yourselves next time you walk into a room, every room you walk into is better because you're in it. You have something to offer, believe me. Your difference is your advantage. Different upbringing means you have different problem solving lenses. Different networks means you can offer fresh insight. Different experiences shows that you have perhaps broader empathy, right? When you're authentic within yourself, you create safety. And when you show up fully, others feel that permission to also do the same. You see where I'm going here? It's going back to how you develop these relationships, or show your visibility to others, right? You have to be confident in being rooted in yourself and knowing that you belong in this room, because you do. So with authenticity, that creates safety. Some practical tips for bringing, your full self into a workspace or corporate event. Speak up clearly, even if it's small. Ask curious questions about apologizing. Share your perspective where it's relevant, and find professional role models who share your lived experiences also. So that this actually goes hand in hand with the next slide, which is about reframing opportunities. So when you're as an intern, you're going to be doing kind of, it depends. You could be doing 1 to 2 rotations, 1 to 5 rotations. At HSBC, I had 5 different rotations, so I was constantly throwing myself into different like pieces of work, right? And yeah, at the start, it was all really like, oh, like buzzy and really exciting. And then like, I think it got to like midway through or like towards the end. I wasn't burnt out, but I was like starting to get a little bit, there were some tasks that I found really boring. And what I want to really hone into you all is not every opportunity is going to look shiny. You have your side projects, you have your shadowing opportunities, you have your note-taking assignments. But really, what you have to always have in your mind is small projects still need big skills, and big skills lead to unexpected doors, right? So just always take every task as a learning moment, stay curious. Hidden opportunities still build skills. So just always reflect, rethink, and revise how to approach different work and different opportunities. With the next slide, we're going to be talking about kind of like the networking journey. So I was kind of debating as to how to map this out because honestly, I hate the word networking. I feel like it's just turned into such a buzzword. It's really just lost its meaning. So I really want to just try and describe what networking means to me and what it could or how other people could define the word. So networking in itself is relationship building, right? Networking isn't just asking people for, their LinkedIn or, just like always asking people strictly about work, right? It's about relationship building. So just forget about the whole forced coffee chats, right? In itself, networking is the exchange of information and ideas among people with a common professional or special interest. So one thing I've seen in my experience is people obsessed with networking vertically. So when I say vertically, I mean people that are most senior. But really, I want to encourage you all that you should really rely on networking horizontally with your peers, right? Because I feel like that's how you make yourself more visible. I feel like it can be really easy to think, oh right, like I need to talk to the CEO, I need to talk to this senior manager, etc., etc. However, how you kind of going back to the point with Jeff Bezos in that how it's about what people say about you when you're not in the room. You want the people you work with to be able to talk well of you because that will instantly echo in corporate spaces, right? So it's about making a positive first impression. Um, so um, networking in itself, that goes hand in hand with active listening. You want to ask and invite with open-ended questions. So acknowledge and encourage, understand what they've said, and encourage to elaborate further by asking follow-up questions. Again, a lot of it is about clarity and reflect. If something piques your interest, also share your view. And also summarize and share. Don't be afraid to take the conversation to a different avenue. And to which then once you've actually had a conversation, you can feel free to exchange LinkedIn, socials, emails, etc., etc. The map that I have presented here, the networking journey. So before the internship, so around May to around this time, June, you want to you want to you want to be you want to start kind of like mapping how you're going to make yourself visible. So a good way to do that is to actually start connecting with your future team on LinkedIn. You could send a pre-message beforehand just to say, oh, you're looking forward to interning, etc., etc. You're all already attending prep events like this one, so that's amazing. And just ask when you take the 16 personalities test, you'll be able to understand better how to set personal goals, which can be integrated in setting personal networking goals. And then kind of like around early July, you want to start really building that rapport with your team, asking colleagues about their journeys. I remember at HSBC, it was really lovely actually, because I was able to have conversation, like be able to like take like book time out of my calendar to have conversation with people about their journey. People, you've probably heard this a lot, but people love talking about themselves. So definitely take advantage of that. And again, even when you first enter the office, depending on how your depending on how your seating is, if it's a thing where it's hot seating, you're sitting next to different people each day. Please, 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 please. If you go and sit next to somebody, just say, "Oh, hi, my name is I'm currently an intern. Like I'm just sitting next to you today." Like just make yourself known. Like don't feel like you should just sit down or sit in a corner and just do your work. Like people are humans. Like interact. We're all social beings, and just doing that will go a long way because people will remember you. Um, and yeah, so midway through like late July to early August, um, there should be events. So attend wider firm events, join affinity groups, and again going back to what I was saying, volunteer with like any departmental projects. because you just meet wider teams as well. Don't just stay comfortable within your team, explore. It's you're stepping into, it's like literally stepping into a new country. There's so much to explore within your firm. And at the end, of course, sustaining at the end of the internship and beyond. So, post August, you want to still be sending your thank you notes, staying in touch after the internship, still booking future check-ins, if you're connected with your colleagues on LinkedIn, if they make a post that resonates with you, just, still check in and be like, oh, I saw you made this post, this really resonated with me still, like, how are you doing? Be natural. Remember, these are people too. But yeah, just always take into consideration that the real secret is at the end of the day, you've been hired because you've been trusted, and it's not, don't have it in your head that it's not just about, people hire people that they know, people are hiring people that they trust, and you've been trusted to obviously intern. So it's like, be happy that that's the case. Going on to the next slide. So personal routines for confidence. I've touched on this slightly with kind of finding some sort of application, whether that's Notion, calendars, even handwritten notes that works with you. But with confidence, confidence is built at the end of the day. It isn't inherited. So I kind of like have some mini confidence rituals. I have like a wins list. So it's really, of course, you've definitely heard keep a diary on you, but also what I like to do is create a subfolder in my emails, that a subfolder called praise, and then anything that praises the work I've done, I put in that subfolder. That's actually also just a really good point, especially if you're looking to convert potentially your internship into a full-time offer. Just kind of like keeping track of kind of the projects and the impact that you've had, from like the people actually praising the work that you've done is always really handy. Um, um, so yeah, with affirmations, just kind of always talk to yourself, and be wary of how you're projecting yourself in a corporate setting, even in how you dress for confidence. That really helps feeling like you belong as well. Even just having an elevator pitch, so just saying, who you are, what you're interested in, what you're looking for, or slash the kind of value that you want to add. But yeah, at the end of the day, preparation builds stability, and stability in that sense will build confidence. With the next slide, just some key takeaways. So just always remember that curiosity is greater than your fear of mistakes. It's good to be inquisitive and to constantly ask questions. I'm sure a lot of you have heard. Just always know that you're already enough, and you have more to bring than you realize. Always just step in boldly and stay curious. So yeah, we can take some questions. I've just seen one come through.
Oh, I can't see. Where's that?
Well, I think we have someone now.
Angela. She said, I know that the majority of the talk has been about skills in the corporate world, but as another Black woman, I would like to know about the appearance side of things. As outdated it may be, there's still a stigma about different hairstyles and what is considered professional. Personally, I love to wear my afro out or do twists or other natural hairstyles, but would these be appropriate in a corporate world?
I love this question. Okay, let me tell you something. You see my hair now? I haven't mixed with black right now, but when I was in my internship, I had literally straight red hair. If that makes you feel any better, like I literally had red boho locks. Like that's literally what I did my internship with. And if anything, it's literally visibility. Don't feel that there's gonna be some sort of judgment, or people are going to perceive you differently because you're wearing your afro cut or wearing your afro out or any other natural styles. Like if anything, I feel like that goes back to building your identity, right? So that's part of you. You should want to showcase that, right? People will remember that if anything. And I my personal standpoint on that is um there's always something that people are going to remember. So for me, like it was definitely my red hair, or just even the way you dress. Um, so this is definitely something not to worry about because I feel like people are so, if anything, people are just curious. Um, so that would be my answer to that. If that answers, hopefully, I hope that makes you feel more reassured.
We've received another question. I know we're jumping the gun a bit because I know you're not at the Q&A, but as you've asked one question, I thought it would be nice to
I'm not, but
get
we can do questions.
to perfect. Someone's asked, what do you do in the face of mistakes you've made? That's garnered quite a bit of complications.
A mistake. Could you clarify a little bit?
Yeah, I think if whoever submit that question, if you could maybe resubmit that or add a bit more context, that would be amazing. We'll get back to that if that's okay. I don't know if you want to continue the presentation in the
No, that was literally
oh
just
yeah.
questions. The next slide, I believe,
Oh
is
yeah,
just
that is questions. Okay, well, to the person who submitted that question about in the face of mistakes, if you could add a bit of more context, that would be great. And if anyone else has any questions, please be sure to submit them in the chat box or the Q&A box. So wait a few moments. Okay, so okay. What do you do if a mistake you've made has caused a lot of trouble?
I believe. So with a mistake that's caused you a lot of trouble, I'm really big on giving yourself grace because mistakes happen. You're only human at the end of the day. And remember, you're interning, so you're really just here. You're here to think, not to know. While saying right, you're here to think, not to know. So in the adversity that your mistake has had a wider significant impact on said thing you're dealing with, it's one important to acknowledge that you've made a mistake, but also to be to understand why you've made that mistake. I think really, if anything, what your manager particularly wants to know about you is how how you handle how you handle when how you handle yourself under pressure, how you collect yourself under pressure. So I think I think in that sense, I think in that particular situation, you want to you want to outwardly acknowledge that you've made that mistake and you want to put forward why you think you've made that mistake, understand why you made that mistake by asking, clarifying questions as well. And just being proactive in that sense. Um, I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
If it doesn't, please feel free to elaborate more in the chat box. But because of time, we'll move on to Ilya, who's asked, during an internship, how do you receive work? Does your manager give you work on a daily or weekly basis?
I think it really depends. For me, it was on a there was kind of like a thing, say on Monday, it was like, right, these are the tasks for the week. But then you could still definitely get incoming tasks throughout. Like I said, there's always reprioritization, right? And that you're getting still different tasks from a different person even. So it just depends on what team you're on, to be honest. But I would say more than most, it works out where it's like weekly. But that doesn't say to go that that's a strict kind of like task. Um, that's like a strict set of tasks to complete, if that makes sense.
No, it
Things are
does. I
yeah.
would also like to add, use your one-to-ones to also determine that as well. Like that first one-to-one you have with your manager is really crucial in terms of like outlining expectations, what is the cadence of the work that's being given to you, to clarify the deadline of those tasks, what do they expect? Is it a thing where they as Luciana mentioned, is it a 20-minute rule?
Yeah.
Do they want you to reach out to colleagues first to just like refine it before giving them the final thing, or would they prefer you to give them a draft? Then you go over it, like
Yeah.
make amendments, and then return the finished product over to them. Like figure that out, but also as Luciana earlier said, have grace on yourself. Like they're not expecting you to be perfect, but they are expecting you to be curious and to try. That's the main thing. Does anyone else have any other questions? Don't be shy.
Literally to ask anything. I'm not scared if everyone's like,
I mean, whilst we wait, I guess then, I know that you mentioned that you went on a bunch of rotations during your internship. Like, how did you navigate that experience in terms of like maximizing the most of every single opportunity? Because that must have felt quite dizzying as well to kind of like stay on top of that. So, like, what was kind of like your strategy of navigating that?
yeah, so the way my internship worked out, I had 5 different rotations over 10 weeks. So it was 2-week periods of each team. And so I was constantly kind of switching and putting on different thinking hats on. What really helped me to stay grounded and focused was I just love talking to people. You learn so much from talking to people and just putting yourself out there, like especially at the start of your internship when the weather's like blooming hot, there's going to be, events. Go to the events. Like, don't be that person that just finishes the working day at 5 and then go, no, 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 no. Go to the events and meet people. Like, that gave me so much more clarity as to what I was doing. um I think what really helped me most of all was just even the support of my colleagues, but just kind of like being curious constantly and constantly asking myself, oh, like, how does this work? Why does it work that way? Like, who does this impact? What does this impact? Every firm has their USP, unique selling point. And so I feel like, especially at this stage, you want to really kind of understand that. And that's gonna better equip you for when you actually start your internship.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Another question that we've received is, what did you do on your first day to connect with your colleagues?
What I do on my first day to connect with my colleagues? Okay, so with me, it was a thing where literally straight after my interview, I felt very confident that I'd get the role. When I did get that acceptance come through, um, I literally already started like LinkedIning people, kind of like seeing, kind of working out like who's in the team, who I'll potentially be seeing in the office, et cetera, et cetera. That's even something you can still do now, with asking kind of like with clarifying like whoever it is that's dealing with your onboarding, um, you know, if there's anyone you can potentially speak to beforehand. In terms of like how I actually went about connecting with people in office, again, one thing that really helped me was when I go to sit next to some like because it was hot seating, it wasn't like there was a set seat. If I was to sit next to some, if I was to sit down next to someone new, I would simply just introduce myself, say, oh, hi, like I'm Luciana, like I'm interning here for 10 weeks. I'm currently in this team. Oh, I'm curious to know what you do. Like that already is so natural. And it's like a lot of the time people don't think to just kind of like introduce themselves to the person that's sitting next to you. Do you know what I mean? It's about being very aware of your surroundings. Um, people always I always get asked like how to succeed in a lot of it comes back down to communication. How do you succeed in communicating? Um, and I just always say to people, like, people are literally like, everyone's a human being. Everyone's a human being. Don't put in your head, oh my God, this person's a really senior person. Like, they must be X, Y, Z. Don't already start making kind of preconceptions about people because that is how you get into your head about it before you even started, and you're already putting yourself down before giving yourself a real chance at creating visibility in your corporate setting. So definitely just always feel obliged to introduce yourself. And if someone really is, interested in you, ask, oh, like, do you have could we block out this part in said calendar to like perhaps talk about your role a little bit more or your journey a little bit more? Yeah, definitely. If there's people that may be a little bit more away, distant from your team, and you really want to speak to, literally just say that to your manager. Say like, oh, this person isn't in our team, or this person's like all the way over there, but I'm really interested in like getting to know them. Like, would it be possible to perhaps like have a sort of more formal introduction with them? And I'm sure they'll be happy to assist with that. I hope that answers.
Agreed. No, that was a very thorough and in-depth answer. I would also just like to add, if you're quite shy, I remember when I started off as an intern, I was I would just get like shell shocked. I struggled to speak and communicate, and now it's a completely different story. But take advantage of the fact that you have a mentor and use them to kind of like initiate introductions or help you, maybe visit different departments, etc. I think that will also help if you're quite shy. But again, use this as a testing ground to push yourself, push your confidence, because when you go out and like you really do start like the early stage of your career, networking is going to be a really big part of helping you kind of like get to the next stage in your career, or even help you to get your next job, especially from what I've learned from a lot of the alumni who have led these training sessions where their next job has often come from a networking event that they randomly stumbled across, or from connecting with their peers, or keeping that relationship with their former manager or mentor warm. So yeah. But we have got a few questions coming through. So Leah again has asked
Yeah,
how to
yeah.
handle colleagues working overtime. Should you stay past 5 p.m. as well?
How to handle colleagues working overtime? Should you say plus 5 p.m. as well? This is a very good question. Okay, so if I'm being completely honest, I think it depends. Can I ask what sector you're doing? Because I think it depends on how your internship's integrated into the firm. Mm, because market research, or I don't. I would say in that sense only. Oh my God, sorry guys, my friend's messaging me like nonstop. Um, in terms of staying over time, don't stay over time as if there's no reason to stay over time. Don't push yourself don't push yourself past your limit, or don't push yourself past a certain point just for appearance. Visibility can and will be done in other ways. You don't only show that through just staying after 5, you know. I would say only stay after 5 if there's like an actual reason to stay after 5, like there's an event or something of that sort, if that makes sense. Um, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Um, Yuki has said, when you're arranging coffee chats with other colleagues, how do you go about asking your manager for permission if it's outside of your lunch break? I think,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah.
No, no, go on.
No, I was gonna say, if it's outside of your lunch break, it should be the thing where at the end of the day, you're the one prioritizing your work and deadlines. So it's like, if it's not interjecting with that, if it's not interfering with that, then it should then then you just you can ask a manager in person, definitely ask them in person if they're there, or email them formally asking for permission. But then you should kind of you should be able to state your case and say like you're aware that perhaps you have this deadline, but this coffee chat or meeting with this colleague will only take X amount of minutes, and so when you see what I mean, you just have to balance it out.
I love that. No,
Um,
thank you. Someone has also asked, how did you prep for meetings and how did you work on being fully confident and getting rid of imposter syndrome where you feel incompetent? And you did touch on that a bit earlier, but I feel like, yeah, if you could dive into that a bit more.
yeah, I love that question. So how did I prep for meetings? I should have even said this earlier. One of my biggest tips for you guys, always, always, always ask for a contact list. Always know who's going to be in the room before you go into the room. Do you see what I mean? Sometimes people will like interject randomly, but just having some sort, like always ask for a list of names just so you're aware. Because that in itself will lead you to be able to just kind of like do some light research onto people, on the work that's being done as well, and even people's views on said work. Um, in terms of the in oh yeah, and also in terms of like the actual meeting, be proactive, be proactive in listening, but proactive in listening also means, having your notebook on hand, pen and paper, usually it is, and just like just listen, be present socially, and show that you're being conscientious by taking notes when necessary. Um, Again, it's kind of the thing where you may ask your manager beforehand how it's going to be panned out in terms of, do they want you to say something in the meeting? So always have that kind of initial conversation beforehand as well if necessary. In terms of like actually getting rid of imposter syndrome, I want you all to reframe. It goes back to that slide of what I was saying. Reframe how you see imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome isn't a bad thing. Um, Reframe it as it being your superpower. If anything, like if it's your superpower in the sense that you clearly, you clearly care to be there, and you clearly dare to learn. You clearly care, want to learn and be willing to show up as as your full authentic self. And so having doubts will always be present, but just balance that with knowing that you've been picked for a reason. Like you've honestly been picked for a reason. I promise you, you weren't just picked because you came through 10K, or there's some sort of other circumstance, like, oh, it's just by chance, it's just by luck. I really, really thoroughly recommend that you all take the 16 personalities test. It's so helpful in understanding yourself. And I think that will really lock in that the kind of whole your outlook on imposter syndrome or imposter traits. Um,
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that advice. I can't see any more questions come through. So I think, oh, I always do that. And then a question comes through. Always. Oh, someone's asked, what personality type are you?
Let me actually make sure I have got this right, because um, I took note of it, but then I always get confused with my sisters. Give me a sec. I am. Oh, let me just. Yeah, so I'm ENTJ. I'll put that in the chat for you guys. There's so many like subtypes. ENTJ. Yeah. So I'm what's known as a commander.
I love that. No, thank you for sharing. Someone has also asked, how long do you usually get to prep for meetings?
It's all relatively speculative, to be honest. How long you get to prep for meetings depends how big the meeting is. It could be the very first meeting of said project. It could be just a quick catch up, follow up, any suggestions meeting. It depends on the type of meeting, to be honest. But in terms of like the prep, I mean, usually when you start your internship, you'll have your whole itinerary like sorted out, right? So you'll literally be able to see what you'll be doing across how many weeks you'll be there. So yeah, it should be. It's all relatively it's all relatively speculative.
Thank you. Again, I can't see any more questions coming through. So I think it is safe to wrap it up here. But I do want to thank you so much for your time, Luciana. You've delivered like an incredible presentation, and
Yeah.
I know that all of our interns will benefit so much from this. So those that weren't there can watch the recording, and I just want to thank you all for being so engaged as well. But yeah, we wish you the best of luck with your internships, and I want to thank you again for your time. Cool. Yeah.
Oh my, wait, can I just take a screenshot of like one of the slides with me in it?
Of course, yeah. Let
Connect with
me
me on
to
LinkedIn.
restart this one or the connect? Let me
Thank
do
you.
the
Yeah. The first slide, that would be
for the
sick.
first one.
Connect to me on LinkedIn, guys. My email as well is on my LinkedIn, so just feel free to message if you would like to get a task or anything. Yeah. Oh, let me just. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, I might just use Sticking Tool instead because it's not letting me screenshot. Sorry, Tiana.
Okay.
um, quickly, why isn't it letting me? Okay, wait. Perfect. I'm very happy with that. Thank you so much.
No
Honestly,
problem.
thank you guys for the comments. I love doing this. Honestly, because it's like I actually did my internship last summer, and it's just crazy like being here. I remember seeing other speakers last summer, and the fact that I'm doing it now is crazy. But yeah.
No, thank you. But no, take care and have a lovely evening, everyone. Bye.